Good morning children. I am going to take science for 7th standard now. So in the previous classes we saw about the reproduction of the plants, that is parts of a flower we saw. Then we saw in the flower about the androecium and gynoecium, that is about the stamens and the pistil we saw. Next we saw about the pollination, and then for types of the flowers we saw and the pollination and fertilization, and next we are going to see about the modification. Now in modification of roots first. So what's modification I said? So modification is to perform the special features other than the usual forms. This is a modification. First we will see the modification of root. So what we are going to see now, the modification of root. Now like example radish, turnip, beetroot. So they all grow under the soil. So what are the examples? Beetroot, radish, turnip, these all grow under the soil. Now when we pluck this plant out, we notice some small roots. For example, if you see the beetroot like this, you will see the small roots, and like with in the radish, then it's like this. So we see the roots. So it's nothing, beetroot, radish, everything is nothing but it's a root of a plant. Now they are thick and swollen. What they are? Thick and swollen. Actually these are nothing but the roots of the plant, and they are thick and swollen also. These are the taproots. For example, if you take the taproot of the radish, it is spindle in shape. So this is a radish. What is the shape? This is a spindle and swollen in the middle. Pussy poirukku solrade, swollen in the middle and tapering at both the ends. So these are tapering at both the ends. So radish is spindle in shape, swollen in the middle and tapering at both the ends. Now like in the case of turnip, first we saw the radish, and in the turnip what happens? The beetroot and in the taproot a shape of a top. For example, there is a beetroot, it's a shape of a top. Top na bambaram solren, yeah, that's a top. So it's a shape of a top that is spherical at the base and tapering shortly towards the apex. That is, what happens? Spherical at the base and shortly tapering towards the apex. Tapering towards the apex, and this is called as a top shaped root. How they are called as a top shaped root. Since it looks like a top, so it is given the name as a top shaped root. Next, in case of carrot, if we take a carrot, it is a conical in shape. What in shape? Conical. It's a cone shape. So it is given the name as a conical. It's conical in shape and it is broad at the apex. It is very broad, broad at the apex and tapering towards the base, that is gradually towards the base, and this is called as a conical shaped root. Conical shaped root. What's given? The name is a conical in shape, and what happens? It is broad at the apex and gradually tapers downwards towards the base, and this is known as a conical shaped root. So first, radish is a spindle shaped root, beetroot is a top shaped root, and the carrot is a conical shaped root. Now next is, then we have seen the roots for storage. Next we will see the mechanical support. Now what is mechanical support? For example, if you like a banyan tree, so everyone know what is a banyan tree. Alamara solren, yeah. It has many trunks. If you see the banyan tree, so if we take this, so it has many trunks. It has many trunks. Because why it has many trunks? Because it is very huge. Yeah, it is very huge and large. So what happens? Banyan tree needs a support to not to tilt or fall down. Tilt means slanting, that's or not to fall down. So these are actually roots. The trunk is nothing but the roots. This banyan tree is large and it needs support to not to tilt or not to fall down. and these require additional support, like these plants need the extra support for them. Now they develop roots on the aerial parts, that is above the ground, to provide mechanical support to the tree. Okay, so they provide mechanical support. Now they grow as these roots grow downward as a supportive organs. Okay, they grow downwards as a supportive organ. So for this example is banyan tree. So for this banyan tree, which acts as a root, these trunk acts as a root. So they are supportive to the tree. Now for this, three types of roots are there for support. Like example, first is prop roots, then stilt root and climbing roots. What are the three roots? Prop, stilt and climbing roots. For prop roots, roots are modified to provide mechanical support as a banyan tree. So prop root is a mechanical support given to the tree, for example banyan. These roots grow vertically from the horizontal branches of a tree. How do they grow? They grow vertically from the horizontal branches of a tree. So these are called as a prop roots. Now stilt root, for example, if you take sugarcane, maize, these adventitious roots arise from the nodes. So this is the sugarcane, this is a stilt roots from the nodes. These are the stilt roots. This is a sugarcane example given to you now. In this, what happens? The roots arise from the nodes and they are in cluster. Cluster means bunch, I said cluster, at the base of the stem. So example given here is the sugarcane. So where do they arise? Arise from the nodes and they are clustered at the base of the stem. And these are called as a stilt roots and they give additional support to the plant. Next is the climbing roots. In beetle, beetle means beetle and black pepper. In this, nodes and internodes bear roots. Though these bear roots which help in climbing. Next is I said climbing roots. For this example is beetle and black pepper. So here nodes and internodes help for climbing. Then breathing roots or respiratory roots. So what is breathing roots? For example, a tree called Avicennia. What is the name? Avicennia. It's a tree which grows in the mangroves or the swamps. Here they have roots which are seen above the ground, where actually the roots are found under the ground, but here the roots are found above the ground. Here the roots are straight. So why they are above the ground? For the purpose of the gaseous exchange. Actually we know that the roots are under the ground, but here the roots are above the ground for the exchange of the gas. Now these roots are erect, that is straight, with numerous pores. So many pores are there through which the circulation of air takes place, that is air circulates, and these are called breathing roots. Breathing roots are otherwise called as a pneumatophores. Breathing roots are otherwise called as a pneumatophores. Pneumatophores. So breathing roots are otherwise called as a pneumatophores. Then haustorial roots. What is haustorial roots? Haustorial roots are nothing but the sucking roots. Haustorial roots are the sucking roots. Nothing but the sucking. So these roots have different special functions, that is, because for example you take cuscata. It's a parasite plant. It climbs the trees for the vegetation. What does it do? It sucks the nutrients from the other plant, that is the neighbor plant or the host plant. So what does it do? It sucks the nutrients from the host plants. So they are usually found in the parasite which depends on the host plants for the nutrients. So they are called as a haustorial roots. Haustorial means sucking, that is they depend on the host plant for sucking the nutrients. Then next we will go to the modification of stems. So we saw about this modification of root. Now we are going to see the modification of stem. Now some plants have the stems So some plants have the stem modified for the storing the food, that is for vegetative propagation, and these modified stem may be aerial, subaerial or underground. So what are the three types? Aerial, subaerial and underground stems. Now first is the aerial modification. First is the phylloclade. Example, cactus. So already I told you all that in dry climate, that is where there is no water, less water, where conserving water is a challenge. Now water evaporates from the surface. What happens if there is a dry climate, less water, water evaporates from the surface. If the surface area is large, evaporation also takes place more. And if surface area is small, the evaporation will be less. What happens if the surface area is larger? Evaporation is also more. If the evaporation surface is lesser, this evaporation also takes less. Now plants with many leaves have much surface area. So to have many leaves means the area also should be more. So it takes leaves have more surface area, and the cactus, for example, I said cactus, it has a thick stem which does most of the food production from photosynthesis, okay, through photosynthesis, and leaves are reduced to small spines. I said stem, leaves are reduced to small spines with less surface area, okay, they are reduced to spines. What happens? Leaves are reduced to spines and they also have a small surface area. Now next we will go to the subaerial. I saw the aerial, now what is the subaerial? In this subaerial grow horizontally on the surface of the soil. These stem, what happens? They grow horizontally on the soil for the purpose of reproduction. And in this there are four types, that is runner, stolen, sucker and offset. So what are the four types of subaerial? That is, they grow horizontally on the surface of the soil. And in these four types, runner, stolen, sucker and the offset. Now first we will see about the runner. Here the stem grows laterally on the surface of the soil. How do they grow? They grow laterally on the surface of the soil, which breaks the roots to, as it touches the ground, they form a new plants. What happens? They grow laterally on the surface of the soil. They grow there. Then what happens? They break up to produce the roots. What happens? They break to produce root where it touches the ground to give rise to a new plant. As it touches the ground, it gives rise to a new plant. Example, centella. Next we will go to a slender, stolen. Now stolen is a slender branch of the stem that goes upwards to some distance and then bend towards the ground. What happens? It grows upwards to some distance and bends towards the ground. So what happens? It grows upwards to some distance and then bend towards the ground. As it touches the ground, it gives rise to a new plant. So upon touching the ground, what happens? It gives rise to a new plant. Example, wild strawberry. Next is a sucker. Sucker is a short and weak branch that grows upwards and directly gives rise to a new shoot. What is a weak stem? Okay, it's a weak and short branch that grows upwards and give rise to a new shoot, and this is called as a chrysanthemum. Then offset. Offset is also like a sucker. It's a short and thick branch. It's a thick branch that arises from the axial part of the leaf. That is offset. Where does it start? Arise from the axial part of the leaf and it has thick internodes and tuft of leaves and cluster of small roots below. So what happens? Offset is a short and the thick stem. Where does it arise? It arises from the axial part of the leaf and it has thick internodes, tuft of leaves and the cluster of small roots. So cluster of small roots and thick leaves and tuft of leaves. Next is, we will go to the underground modification. Now we saw about the aerial, subaerial, and next we are going to move to the underground modification. Now in aerial and subaerial modification, the growth is indefinite. But in underground modification, the whole stem is found under the ground and the growth is definite there. Okay. So when we saw in the aerial and subaerial, what happens? They are indefinite in growth. But this stem is under the ground, it's grown under the ground, it's of a definite growth. And in this, they grow under the ground to store food. So why did they grow? To store food. And they swell and become thick. And these are also of 4 types, like rhizome, cone, tuber and bulb. So they are of the 4 types: rhizome, cone, tuber and bulb. Now first, if we take rhizome, it is an underground thick stem. Okay, outside these stems will grow under the ground only. This is underground modification. These stems will go underground with a definite growth. And it has a thick stem with nodes and internodes. What does it have? It has a nodes and internodes and scaly leaves at the node. And they are grown horizontally with the irregular shape. So they don't have a regular shape and they have an irregular, and the rhizome have the buds also. These also have a buds which give rise to a new stem and the leaves. For example, ginger. Okay, so you have, everybody have seen ginger. It's of same shape. No, it's of irregular shape. And they have the nodes and the internodes, and they are grown horizontally, which is of irregular shape, and these have buds. And they grow into a new stem and the leaves. Next is cone. If you see cone, example, colocasia. In this, it is round in shape at the flat at the top and the bottom. Flat at the top as well as the bottom. In this bears 1 or more buds. I said in rhizome have buds. Here bears 1 or more buds in the axils of the scale leaves. So in the cone, what happens? There are 1 or more buds and have the axils of the scale leaves. Here daughter plants also arise from their buds, like here there is a plant and daughter plants like this arise from the buds. So these are the daughter plants which arise from the buds. So this is a cone. Example, colocasia I said. Next is a tuber. For this example is potato, already I said. So it is enlarged spherical and underground stem that stores food. So it's an underground stem that stores food and has a eyes. Said from where the shoot arise, already I said. These has eyes. Then it's a part of a tuber with the bud. And if we plant this part of a flower with the bud, it grows into a new plant. So what happens if we planted the part of a flower with the bud? So if we plant it, it grows into a new plant. Example, potato. Now next we will see bulb. So bulb is 2 types of leaves, that is fleshy leaves and the scaly leaves. Now the upper part of the stem has a terminal bud. So upper part of the stem has a terminal bud with the scaly leaves. Terminal bud covered by scaly leaves, and the inner part is store food. Example, garlic and onion. Garlic and onion. So as I said, in this bulb, it's a disc-like and stores food in the fleshy leaves, and it has upper part where the terminal bud and the scaly by many leaves, and the inner part store food. Example, garlic and the onion. Next we will go to the modification of leaf. So it's about the modification of root, modification of stem, and at last we are going to see the modification of leaf. Now in modification of leaves of several plants modify into different form based on the purpose and the environment. So modify based on the purpose and the environment. That is, first is a spines, tendrils, phylloclade and traps. Now, first we will see the spines. So, first we are going to see the spines now. So, already I told you all that in Opentia, example Opentia I said that leaves are reduced to spines. Now, leaves here also, leaves are reduced to spine and the stem is modified into green part to perform the photosynthesis. So, in the Opentia I already said the leaves are reduced to spine and next is the stem. This stem is modified into green part to perform the photosynthesis. Example Opentia. Next is tendrils. Now in tendrils also I said that is a climber. Tendril is a climber. The leaf of the plant are modified into elongated structure to help the plant climb. So in the tendrils I said like this. It's a leaf. It is modified. It helps the plant to climb. Now for example Gloriosa superba. Here the leaf tips are modified into tendrils. And Pisum sativum, that is piece. So this what I said, Pisum sativum. It's an example where the terminal leaflets, these are modified into tendrils. So terminal leaflets are modified into tendrils. Then next is a phyllodes. Next is a phyllodes. Here example Acacia auriculoformis. Here the petioles expand, that is gets brought to form leaf-like structure. So what happens, the petioles expand to form a leaf and this they carry out the function of a leaf, that is photosynthesis. What happens in Acacia, petioles expand to form a leaf-like structure and this performs a photosynthesis. Then traps. For example, in this you take Nepenthes. It is Nepenthes. It is flask-like structure. It is a flask. What happens, that is plants that grow in the nitrogen deficient places. Nitrogen deficiency. So nitrogen deficient places, these are the plant called the Nepenthes. What they do, the leaves are modified into a flask-like structure. Okay, what happens, the leaves are modified into flask-like structure which is used to attract insects. Okay, so what happens, this attracts the insects and the other tiny animals. So leaves are modified into flask-like structure which attracts insects and other small tiny animals. And the inner wall of the leaf secretes the digestive enzymes. What happens? It secretes the digestive enzymes and help to digest the insects and extract the nitrogen for the plants. So it has inside the leaf it secretes a digestive enzymes and this help to digest the insects. So what they do, they trap the insects and get the nitrogen for the plants. So what happens, they trap the insects and digest it and then extract the nitrogen from them for the plants. Then so by this we are finishing the lesson, children. So already I'll draw the sexual reproduction in plants. That is parts of a flower. Take down this in your notebook, children. Draw this diagram. This is a so there's the parts of a flower. So I think you know what and all I taught you. This is a sepal, this is a petal, this is a filament, anther, ovary, ovule, style and stigma. So these are the parts of a plant. And I'll draw the life cycle of a plant. Life cycle of a plant. So this is a flower. So this is the stamen. So stamen. Next is the anther. This undergoes pollination. That is a pistil, so stigma, the pollen, this is pollen tube, that is a style, so ovary, so egg. Then next is a fertilized egg becomes a embryo of a seed. This is a embryo of a seed. Then this germinates to produce a new plant. So this is a life cycle of a plant. So I think you have understood the full lesson, children. Thank you.